the Revelator, he's given a measurement, and the word goes out, I want you to measure the temple. I want you to measure everything. Have you stepped back from your life and said, what am I really doing? If we give to others, God gives to us. Is that really true? That whatever measure we give, he shakes down, presses over, runs over, and gives back to us. If a man sows good seed, then he'll reap good seed. Some people think, well, Pastor, I don't know about all this tithing stuff. I don't know about all this giving stuff. I can't afford to give 10% to the church and 10% to the things of God. They're really not going to like it when I say it's not only 10%, it's the first 10%. But what if God didn't measure us by what we gave? What if God measured us by what we kept? What if, remember that Pharisees came up and they said, look how much I'm giving. And they had that huge jumbo check, and it was a huge amount, and all the disciples were so impressed. They go, wow, he's so generous. And Jesus shakes his head and goes, he's giving his leftovers. He has a mansion. He has lots of cars. For him, that huge number is nothing to him. Jesus said, look at that little old lady. And there she walked humbly, and she took a couple of nickels and she dropped them in the offering. And Jesus said, you see that woman? She gave more than everybody. She gave her last 2 nickels. You see, God doesn't just look at us by what we give. He watches us by what we keep. And I want you to think about the blueprint for your life. What deposit are you going to make in this life? What good are you going to give in this life? And when your day comes, what will people say about you? Because truly we only have a little bit of time. In the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything. There's a time to rejoice. There's a time to weep. There's a time to embrace. There's a time to refrain from embracing. That God has given us these times that are all in His hand. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 16, it says, help us to make the best of our time. Students, when you go to school, let me give you some great advice. Do well. Write that down? Why should you do well? Because you're going to be there anyway. If you're going to do a math, do the best you can. When you're out on the court playing basketball, do the best you can. Why? Because someday you're going to be an older guy wishing you could have that strength, wishing you could have that speed, wishing you could go one more round. Some of us watch that Napoleon Dynamite. We like that Uncle Rico guy. We're like, yeah, I get it. If only I could go back. Coach, put me in the game. Dude, you're like 60 years old. Coach would have put me in the game back when I was 17 years old. We would have won the state championship. If only, if only, if only. I don't want to have a bunch of if-onlys in my life. I want to say each day I did the best I could with that day. God, you give me a blueprint, and part of the blueprint is I do the best I can for as long as I can, each and every time. In Psalm chapter 31, it says, my times, O Lord, are in your hand in a favorable time. Lord, teach us to number our days. And so if you're asking God today for the blueprint of your life, then be specific, and He'll give you specific measurements. Spend this much time at church. I saw one of those videos on how Americans spend time from 1900 all the way to 2020. And it said time with the family, time at school, time at work, time at church, time off. And then when TV was invented, that was a graph, that was a bar. And church was like 6%. I'm watching the church one. I'm like, oh yeah. 6% of the time is at church. And family's like 50%, work's like 25%. And then as time goes, you see the bars start moving. And it was just a little bit about family, church, time, work. And then all of a sudden, in like 1996, the internet comes out. Yeah. And then the internet just goes all the way. I mean, it was like 35% internet and everything else just shrinks. Is that how we want to spend our time?